important part of this committee and its actual role is government reform and oversight, even though my colleagues on the other side have had the term government removed from its name. A key part of this is FITARA, which is why we're here today. The Federal Data Center consolidation category was initially created to optimize the use of data centers and cut costs, but it's unclear how much potential remains in this initiative today. The government should not be wasting time or effort on tax dollars. And while we're in this hearing, an important aspect as the committee charged with government oversight and reform is determining the effectiveness of FITARA and the way in practice that it is actually operating. I was in another office, so this is one of the concerns of mine. Ms. Carol Harris, the FITARA scorecard is supposed to grade agencies on their implementation of the provisions of the FITARA law, but the current scorecard includes some categories that were not in the law. Has the addition over the years of non-FITARA related categories to the scorecard made it more or less effective in serving its intended purpose?
I think the addition of the other categories relative to MGT and other statutes has enhanced the scorecard. I also think that it has, the fact that the scorecard categories relative to FITARA are still in there has given a focus, as these gentlemen have talked about, in agencies' operations and their focus areas, what they should be, the priorities. So I do think that it has been an overall very positive benefit to the implementation of the law using the scorecard as a means for oversight.
Okay, all right. Now, those additional categories would incur additional costs, right?
I don't believe it's incurring additional costs. We utilize data that is publicly available, and it's data that would have been, submitted regardless. So we're utilizing what is available today for these other areas, and so I think the net benefit has been, the implementation of both FITARA as well as the other statutes that the other categories are hinged upon.
Okay, all right. Well, now I have a question for each of you, and we'll start over here on this end. Can you provide a rough estimate of the resources required for each of your representative agencies to put together the data feeding into this scorecard?
Thank you very much for that question, Congressman. I would have to get back to you on that, on the rough estimate on what it would take to.
So you can't give me an estimate of what you think it actually costs you to comply with this?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay. Mr. Sherman?
I would have to take for the record to get the exact amount. I would just say, though, what FITARA embodies is part of our normal job at the Department of Defense to both drive out efficiencies and modernize. So it would be kind of marbleized in the rest of what we're just doing as CIO, but we'd have to take for the record for the exact amount, sir.
Okay. All right. Mr. Shive?
My answer is actually quite similar to Mr. Sherman's. An IT shop that's doing its job well measures its performance across multiple spectrum, and most of those are already captured in the creation of FITARA. I would say my estimate it's a de minimis amount. We're already capturing this data, putting it into a format that we can share out on public forums, which is always the right thing to do. It's a de minimis.
Okay. Ms. Harris, you agree? All right.
Sorry, I do agree.
Follow up. Looking at the final product and the overall grade, do you consider this scorecard to be an accurate reflection of your agency's posture in the various categories?
Well, we'll use this version.
Thank you for
I
that
just
question.
clarified a bit and made it shorter. So you're probably not going to have time.
Somebody needs to mute. I think that's you, Mr. Khanna. I'm sorry, Mr. Clyde, to whom was your question?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Congressman. So we've talked about cybersecurity. I would say of the areas of the scorecard, certainly it's not an accurate reflection, in my view, of our posture relative to cybersecurity. We've actually spent a lot of time and focused energy on improving cyber across the agency, and we've done so, since the start of the pandemic. The pandemic really forced us to rethink how we are managing our IT assets remotely, how we're protecting them, how we're securing, how we're patching them. So I don't necessarily think it's an accurate reflection, but we've talked about that it's just one perspective, which is the IG assessment. And so that's where my position on that, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr.
Sir, with respect to FATARA and the values brought to us, I do not believe, particularly the FATARA 14.0 we're on, is an accurate reflection of the Department of Defense. It's pushing us in the right direction on a number of things like the transition of the telecom contract. But if we look across the board of what we're doing to modernize for our warfighting mission, we're not accurately capturing what we're doing on there. And indeed, some of the metrics are with kind of an absolutist, either we've moved or not, is not accurate for an enterprise the size of the Department of Defense. We're better than the D+ we have on the scorecard right now in terms of supporting our women and men in uniform, sir.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Shive?
Yes, thank you. The FATARA is notationally correct in assessing the status of an organization. Earlier in the hearing, we talked about how FATARA has iterated in response to changing business priorities, changing technology priorities. Part of iteration is there's a separation and a gap sometimes as you change the measures to be responsive to changes in those business or technology priorities or strategies. And so you see these blips, but notationally, it's notationally correct in my opinion.
Thank